I froze in the doorway of the restroom, unable to believe my eyes. My son, my Jerome, was kneeling on the tile floor in front of a toilet, a rag in his hands. Towering over him was Sterling D. Thorne, his father-in-law, and the owner of this whole damn company. Welcome to Betty's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. Sterling was laughing loudly, his voice echoing off the tiled walls. "There he is, your smart boy with the high honors degree," Sterling shouted, addressing someone behind him. 30 years old, college-educated, and all he's good for is this. Look, Taylor, your husband found his true calling. I saw Taylor, Jerome's wife, appear in the doorway. She didn't rush to defend her husband. She smiled. She just stood there, smiling, watching her own father humiliate the man she had vowed to be with, for better or for worse. Jerome looked up and saw me. The shame in his eyes made me want to melt through the floor. And then he cried. My grown, strong son cried like a little boy. "Mom," was all he could choke out. I turned and walked away. Not because I didn't care, but because if I had stayed for even one more second, I don't know what I would have done to Sterling Thorne. But I knew one thing for certain. That man would pay for every tear my son cried, for every second of humiliation. He would pay so dearly that he would regret the day he decided to break my Rome. My name is Aisha Johnson, and this is my story of how I dismantled the life of a man who dared to touch the most precious thing I have. And know this, by the end of this story, you'll find out the price I made him pay, a price that turned a rich and powerful businessman into a nobody. But first, let's start from the beginning. To understand why I went to such lengths, we have to go back many years. I was 28 then, and I had just given birth to Jerome. It felt like my life was finally coming together. I had a husband, a tiny son, and a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I was happy. Then one morning I woke up and found a note on the kitchen table. Just a few lines written in a shaky hand. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. Don't look for me." That was it. No explanation, no reasons. Just a note and an empty apartment. The man I trusted, the father of my child, had simply vanished. He left me alone with a 3-month-old baby. For the first few days, I was in shock. I didn't understand what was happening or how it was even possible. But then it sank in. I had no one else to rely on but myself. And I had a son who needed to be fed, clothed, and raised. I took on 3 jobs simultaneously. In the morning, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store. During the day, I was a cleaner at an office building. In the evenings, I did odd jobs, scrubbing stairwells in apartment buildings. Yes, that's right. I scrubbed other people's floors just so my son could have a hot dinner. I slept about 4 hours a night and couldn't remember the last time I bought myself anything new. All the money went to Jerome. I remember getting him ready for kindergarten. I wanted him to have everything the other kids had: new clothes, a new backpack, nice school supplies. I saved up for 6 months, denying myself even the basics. But when he started school that first day, he looked just as good as the others. That was my small celebration, my personal day of victory. Jerome grew up to be a smart boy. He did well in school, never got bad grades, and always helped me around the house. He saw how exhausted I was and tried not to create any extra trouble. Sometimes I would catch his gaze, so serious, so mature for his age, and I knew he understood everything. He understood that we didn't have money for the toys his classmates had, that I came home utterly drained, and that we were alone in this world. But he never complained. Instead, he promised me, "Mama, I'll study hard. I'll get into college, I'll find a good job, and you'll never have to be this tired again." And you know what? He kept his promise. Jerome graduated high school with high honors and got a full scholarship to college. 5 years later, he earned his degree with distinction. I cried at his graduation, from happiness, from pride, from relief. All those years of struggle, all those sleepless nights and exhausting jobs, it had all paid off. My son had become an educated man. He achieved what I couldn't afford for myself, and I believed that now he would have a different life, a life of dignity. Right after graduation, Jerome immediately found a job. Swiftline Logistics wasn't the most prestigious company, but it was a decent starting point for his career. The salary was modest, about $1,900 a month. But Jerome was thrilled. He called me the same evening he signed the contract. "Mom, I got hired. Official job, salaried, full benefits." His voice was bursting with pride. "I start tomorrow." I listened, feeling a warmth spread through me. My son, a college graduate, with a job, with a future. "Congratulations, son. I'm so happy for you." "Mom, I'm going to help you now. I'll send money every month. You can finally rest." "Rome, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he said firmly. "You worked your whole life for me. Now it's my turn." And he truly helped. He transferred $400 every month, even though I knew it wasn't easy for him. He rented a small apartment close to work to save on commuting costs, ate simply, but he always sent me money. Thanks to his help, I was able to quit one of my jobs. I kept only the grocery store and the office cleaning, 2 shifts instead of 3. For the first time in 30 years, I had free evenings. I could come home at 8 o'clock instead of 10. I could watch television, lie on the couch, just be a person, not a workhorse. Jerome came to see me once a week. We ate dinner together. He talked about work, his colleagues, and how he was learning to master routes and logistics. He spoke of his plans to build a career, to advance to manager, then to head of the department. "I don't want to stay in a low-level position forever, Mom," he would say. "I want something more." I stroked his head, just like when he was a child. "You'll do it all, Rome. You're smart and capable. Just take your time. Everything happens when it should." 6 months passed. Jerome settled into his job and got a small raise. Life was entering a peaceful routine. I thought the worst was behind us, that things would only get better, that my son could peacefully build his life, career, and future. How wrong I was. One evening, it was in October, Jerome called me. I immediately heard a change in his voice, a certain excitement, a special joy. "Mom, are you sitting down?" "I am. What happened?" "I met a girl." My heart skipped a beat. Of course, I had always dreamed of Jerome having a family, but for some reason, at that exact moment, I felt an unexplained, deep anxiety. "Really? Tell me about her." I tried to sound joyful. "Her name is Taylor. We met at a business meeting. She came to our office for work. Mom, she's incredible, beautiful, smart, educated. I didn't expect a girl like her to even look at me." That sentence immediately put me on guard. Didn't expect her to look at me. Why? My son was a wonderful person, smart, kind, decent. Any woman should have been happy to be with him. "Jerome, you are a great man. If she saw that, then she's a smart girl." "I want you to meet her," he continued. "Let's all get together this Saturday at a coffee shop." "Of course, son. I'd be happy to meet her." When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. For some reason, I didn't feel the happiness a mother should feel upon hearing about her son's girlfriend. It was something else, a premonition, a bad premonition, but I dismissed the thoughts. I was probably just afraid that Jerome would leave my life, start his own family, and I'd be left alone. Just normal maternal possessiveness, nothing more. Saturday came quickly, and with it, the meeting that changed everything. I arrived a little early, nervous, like before an exam. I fixed my hair and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My only decent blouse was washed and ironed. I wanted to look respectable, so my future daughter-in-law wouldn't think Jerome came from a disadvantaged family. They walked in together. Jerome was beaming with happiness, holding her hand. And Taylor? Taylor was beautiful, very beautiful. Long dark hair, perfect makeup, an expensive dress, an elegant designer handbag. She looked like a model from a magazine. I instantly felt the difference between us. Jerome introduced us. "Mom, this is Taylor. Taylor, this is my mom. Aisha Johnson. Taylor extended her hand, and I noticed her perfectly manicured, well-cared-for nails. My hands, hardened from work, with short, broken nails, looked like an old woman's next to hers. I felt awkward, but I smiled and shook her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Johnson," Taylor said. Her voice was polite but cold. The smile didn't reach her eyes. She assessed me from head to toe, and I saw something in that look that I disliked immediately, a slight, barely noticeable contempt, but I caught it. We sat down at a table. Jerome ordered coffee and desserts, telling the story of how they met at a business meeting and how instantly he felt an attraction to her. Taylor was mostly silent, occasionally nodding, but rarely joining the conversation. I tried to start a discussion, asking about her work and hobbies. "I work in marketing," she answered curtly. "At my father's company. We do industrial manufacturing." "How interesting," I said. "And what exactly does your father's company do?" Taylor shrugged, as if my question was too primitive to warrant a detailed answer. "Thorn Manufacturing Group. We produce components for the construction industry. We're one of the largest companies in the region." She spoke about it with such pride, such superiority, that it made me uncomfortable. I saw how she looked at our modest coffee shop, my simple clothes, and Jerome, who was trying so hard to impress her. And I understood. This girl was used to luxury. She had grown up with wealth and comfort, and Jerome and I were people from a different world for her. After the meeting, Jerome walked me to the bus stop. He asked if I liked Taylor. I wanted to be honest. I wanted to tell him that I felt something was wrong, but he was looking at me with such hope, such happiness in his eyes, that I couldn't. I just hugged him and said, "The important thing is that she loves you, son. Nothing else matters." But the doubts remained in my heart, and they only grew stronger with every subsequent meeting. 3 months later, Jerome proposed to Taylor. She accepted, and preparations for the wedding began. Jerome was over the moon, telling me over the phone about their plans for their future life, while I listened quietly, trying to be happy for him. But anxiety was growing inside me. They decided to hold the wedding at Taylor's parents' house. Jerome tried to suggest a more modest option, a restaurant, a small banquet hall, but Taylor insisted, "We'll celebrate at my parents' place. They have a country estate. We'll organize everything there." Jerome agreed. He always agreed with her. The wedding day arrived. I wore my best dress, which I bought especially for the occasion. I spent 2 months' wages on it, but I wanted to look respectable so Jerome wouldn't be ashamed of his mother. The Thorn house turned out to be a veritable mansion, huge grounds, a high fence, security at the gates. I stepped inside and stopped dead. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, grand staircases, paintings on the walls. People who lived here never had to count every penny, never had to work 3 jobs just to feed their family. The guests gathered in the main hall. Everyone was dressed up, everyone was self-assured. I felt like an outsider. I stood by the wall, not knowing who to talk to, afraid to say the wrong thing. Then a man approached me, tall, broad-shouldered, in an expensive suit. He looked down at me. His gaze held the same contempt I had seen in Taylor's. "You must be the groom's mother," he said, not asking but stating, as if I were beneath him in rank. "Yes," I replied. "Aisha Johnson." He didn't offer his hand in greeting, just nodded. "Sterling Thorn, the bride's father. I hope your son understands the honor being bestowed upon him by being accepted into our family." I felt something clench inside me. What honor? My son was educated, decent, and hard-working. He was in no way inferior to them. But I remained silent. Today was Jerome's wedding day, and I didn't want to ruin his celebration. "My son is worthy of your daughter," I said quietly. Sterling scoffed. "We'll see. Taylor is used to a certain lifestyle. I hope your Jerome can provide it, although, judging by where he works—" He trailed off meaningfully. This man was humiliating my son without even knowing him. He judged him by his salary, his position, his lack of wealth. I wanted to strike him, but I controlled myself, turned, and walked away to avoid saying too much. The wedding was lavish and expensive. Jerome and Taylor looked happy, but I couldn't shake the heavy feeling all evening. I saw Sterling Thorne talking with his guests, laughing, drinking expensive wine, discussing their business. I saw how they looked at Jerome, like a stranger who had accidentally stumbled into their circle. And then I overheard a conversation. Sterling was standing with a man on the terrace, smoking. I walked by and unintentionally caught their words. "Well, Sterling, married off your daughter?" the man asked. "Married off?" Sterling replied. "Taylor fell in love. What can you do? Truthfully, the groom isn't exactly high caliber. Works at some small outfit for peanuts. But no matter, we'll teach him. Maybe he'll amount to something if handled correctly." They laughed, and I understood. For Sterling Thorne, my son was a project, a person to be trained, corrected, and made useful. For the first time in many years, I felt true fear for Jerome. The wedding was over, the honeymoon ended, and ordinary married life began. Jerome continued to work at Swift Line, and Taylor worked at her father's company. The newlyweds rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood. Jerome told me they paid about $1,200 a month for it, which was a huge strain on their budget. In the first few months, I barely saw my son. He was busy with work, setting up their home and his wife. He called rarely, kept it brief. "Mom, everything's fine. Don't worry." But I worried anyway. A mother's heart felt that something was wrong. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and drove over to visit them. I bought a cake and some fruit. I wanted to cheer the young couple up. I rang the doorbell. Jerome opened the door, and I gasped. In 2 months, he had changed. He was thinner, had dark circles under his eyes, and a kind of weariness in his gaze. "Rome, are you sick?" I pressed my palm to his forehead. "No, Mom, just a lot of work." He offered a weak smile. "Come in. Taylor will be glad to see you." But Taylor didn't look glad. She was sitting on the couch with her phone in her hand and didn't even get up to greet me. "Hello, Mrs. Johnson," she said, without looking up from the screen. "Hello, Taylor. I brought a cake. I thought we could have tea together." "Thank you, but I'm on a diet." Jerome put it in the fridge. Jerome silently took the cake and carried it to the kitchen. I sat in an armchair and looked around the apartment. Everything was expensive, stylish, but somehow cold. As if people didn't live here, they just stayed. "How are you settling in?" I asked, trying to make conversation. "The apartment is nice. The neighborhood is convenient." "It's okay." Taylor finally put down her phone. "Though, of course, I wish it were bigger. But we can't afford more on Jerome's salary." There was something unpleasant in her voice, an accusation, dissatisfaction. "Jerome earns well for his age," I defended my son. "He has a whole future ahead of him." "He's 30 years old, Mrs. Johnson. That's not a whole future ahead. My college friends are already department heads. Some have started their own businesses, and he's still hauling some kind of cargo." Jerome walked out of the kitchen. I saw his cheek twitch. He had heard the words. "Taylor, we agreed to discuss this privately," he said quietly. "Not in front of my mother." "What's the big deal?" "I'm telling the truth," she shrugged. "Dad offered you a job at his company, but you're showing off your pride." "I want to earn my place myself." Jerome sat down next to me. His hands were shaking. "I don't want to be dependent on anyone." "Dependent!" Taylor jumped up from the couch. "It's called using opportunities. Everyone does it. But no, you're too proud. We'll spend our whole lives living in a rented apartment, scrimping on everything, just because you have principles." I watched the scene, feeling everything clench inside. There it was. That was why Jerome looked so drained. This woman was pressuring him, day after day, week after week, accusing him of not earning enough, not being successful enough, not being good enough for her. "Taylor," I tried to intervene. "Jerome works honestly. He's building his career on his own. That deserves respect." She looked at me as if I were a bug. "Mrs. Johnson, with all due respect, you worked for pennies your whole life. You don't understand how big business works. Connections are everything, and if you have a chance to enter a big company through family, you should use it." "Taylor!" Jerome raised his voice. "Don't talk to my mother like that." "I'm saying what I think." She crossed her arms. "If you want us to have a normal life, future children, a decent car, our own house, you'll have to swallow your pride and accept Dad's offer." I stood up. "I need to go." "Mom, wait." Jerome tried to hold me back. "No, son. You two have things to work out. I don't want to interfere." I left, and on the way home, I cried on the bus. This marriage was a mistake. I saw it clearly now. Taylor didn't love Jerome. She loved the idea of a successful husband, money, status. And my son was just a tool for her to achieve that. After that visit, Jerome started calling me more often, usually late at night when Taylor wasn't home. He complained that he couldn't handle the constant pressure. "Mom, I don't know what to do. It's the same thing every day. She calls me a failure, says all her friends married successful men, and she got stuck with a broke logistics guy. I work, but it's not enough." "Rome, do you love her?" I asked him directly. He was silent for a long time. "I don't know, Mom. I loved the girl I met 6 months ago. But now I don't even recognize her. She's changed. Or maybe I just didn't see the real Taylor before." "Then maybe you should think about—" "No," he interrupted. "I made a vow. We're husband and wife. I have to try to save our marriage. Maybe if I really agree to work for my father-in-law, things will get better. Maybe she's right, and I'm just too stubborn." "Jerome, don't do it for her. Only do what you believe is right." "I don't even know what's right anymore." His voice trembled. "I'm 30 years old, Mom. I should be providing for my family. And if I have to swallow my pride to do that, maybe that's what I have to do." We said goodbye. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. All night I tossed and turned thinking about what was happening to my son. Taylor was breaking him. Slowly but surely, she was turning him into a man who doubted himself, his abilities, his worth. And I knew if he went to work for Sterling Thorne, it would only get worse. That man wouldn't give Jerome a normal job. He was planning something bad, but there was nothing I could do. I could only wait and hope my son would make the right decision. 2 weeks later, Jerome called again. "Mom, I've decided. I'll talk to Mr. Thorne. I'll ask him to take me into the company. If it's the only way to keep the peace, I agree." A chill ran through me. "Rome, think about it one more time." "I already have. I'm going to his office tomorrow. Taylor is happy. She says I'm finally growing up." I heard such weariness, such submission in his voice that I wanted to scream, but I stayed silent. My son was a grown man. It was his choice. I had to respect it, even if I was terrified for him. Jerome set up a meeting with Sterling Thorne for the next day. He prepared for it like an exam, reviewing information about the company, planning what to say and how to present himself. Taylor was ecstatic, even cooked him dinner that evening, something she hadn't done in months. "See how simple it is?" she said, serving him pasta. "One conversation with Dad and our lives will change. You'll join a major corporation, start your career. We can get a bigger apartment." Jerome nodded, but I knew he had doubts in his heart. He called me late that night. "Mom, I'm scared." "Of what, son?" "That I won't be able to handle it. That I'll disappoint him. That Mr. Thorne will look at me and say, 'You're not good enough. I've never worked for a company this big. I don't have experience in manufacturing.'" "Rome, you're smart, educated. You have a degree with distinction. You learn fast. You'll handle it." "I hope so," he sighed. "This is my last chance, Mom. If this doesn't work out with Taylor, I don't know what will happen." The meeting took place at the Thorne Manufacturing Group office. Jerome arrived in his best suit with a folder of documents, his resume, diploma, and recommendations. The secretary led him into Sterling's massive office. Sterling sat behind an enormous dark wood desk in a leather chair, like a king on a throne. He looked up at Jerome and smirked. "Well, son-in-law, are you finally ripe?" he asked, instead of a greeting. "Hello, Mr. Thorne." Jerome offered his hand. Sterling shook it weakly, almost reluctantly. "Sit down. Taylor said you want to work at our company." "Yes, I'm ready to apply my knowledge and skills. I'm ready to learn and grow." "Stop. Sterling waved his hand. "No rehearsed speeches. I'll hire you. Not because you're so talented, but because you're my daughter's husband, and I don't want to listen to her whining about how poor her husband is." Jerome clenched his fists under the table, but stayed silent. "What position do you have available?" he asked. "Assistant logistics manager," Sterling replied. "Salary, $3,800, official, plus bonuses if you perform. Start on Monday." $3,800. That was $1,900 more than at Swiftline. Jerome was relieved. Maybe it wasn't so bad after all. Maybe Sterling was actually giving him a chance. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I won't let you down." "We'll see." Sterling leaned back in his chair. "I have high standards. I don't tolerate mistakes or laziness. You will work the way I tell you to. Understood?" "Understood." "Then you're dismissed. Be here by 9 o'clock on Monday. Bring your documents." Jerome left the office feeling elated. He immediately called Taylor. "It worked! He hired me. $3,800 official dollars." Taylor screamed with joy. "I told you! I knew Dad would help you! Rome, this is the start of a new life!" He came to see me that evening. I hadn't seen him this happy in a long time. His eyes were bright, and he was smiling. "Mom, everything's going to be okay. I can feel it. Mr. Thorne gave me an opportunity, and I'm going to prove I deserve it. I'll work so hard that he'll regret not hiring me sooner." I looked at him and tried to be happy, but something inside warned me, it's a trap. Sterling Thorne isn't the kind of person who just helps. He's planning something bad. "Rome, what exactly will you be doing? What are the responsibilities?" "Assistant logistics manager. I'll be helping with supply organization, paperwork, quality control. Basically what I did before, but in a bigger company." "And he didn't say anything strange?" "No, Mom. Everything was normal. Just a regular interview. He's just a bit harsh, direct, but that's normal for a businessman at his level." I didn't argue. Maybe I was just being overly suspicious. Maybe Sterling decided to give his son-in-law a chance for his daughter's sake. Maybe everything would be fine. The weekend flew by. Jerome prepared for his first day of work, rereading company information, studying the structure, and memorizing the names of key employees. Taylor was affectionate with him, like in the first days of their relationship. Everything seemed fine. On Sunday evening, Jerome called me one last time before starting work. "Mom, big day tomorrow. I'm nervous, but in a good way. You know, like before a race. I'm proud of you, son. You're doing great. You'll handle everything." "Thanks, Mom. I love you." "And I love you, Rome." We said goodbye, and I sat in my empty apartment and prayed. I prayed that everything would be okay, that my son wouldn't suffer, that my premonitions were wrong. But on Monday morning, everything came crashing down. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Jerome called me. He was weeping. My 30-year-old son was crying into the phone so hard he couldn't speak. "Rome, what happened? Where are you?" "Mom, please come. I'm at the office. I'm so ashamed. I'm on my way. Hold on." I dropped everything and raced over. On the way to the Thorne Manufacturing Group office, my heart hammered like crazy. What happened? What did that scumbag Sterling do to my son? I ran into the building and went up to the right floor. The secretary tried to stop me, but I pushed past her. I was looking for Jerome, calling his name, and then I heard laughter. Sterling Thorne's loud, sickening laughter. I followed the sound, pushed open the door marked restroom, and froze. What I saw will stay with me forever. My son, my smart, educated, worthy son, was kneeling in front of a toilet, a rag in his hands. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and there were streaks of dirt on his face. His new suit, which he had so proudly worn this morning, was splattered with soapy water. Next to him, Sterling Thorne stood, arms crossed, laughing, loudly, disgustingly, with pleasure. Come on, hustle!" Sterling yelled. "Right here, you missed a spot. See that stain, or do you have eye trouble?" Behind Sterling stood two men in expensive suits, clearly his business partners. They were also chuckling, exchanging glances, watching the spectacle. "Sterling, did you seriously hire him for this job?" asked one of them, a gray-haired man in his 60s. "Why not?" Sterling turned to him. I always say you have to start from the bottom. Let him get to know the company from the inside. Literally, the inside. Restrooms are the foundation of any business. They burst